Thank you, Craig.
Welcome, guys. So this is my friend Steven Cerabona. Our circle jokes about how he's going to be the future president of 20. What year would it be? It's 2020 now. You're 16, so 2044,
2040.
2040.
Yep.
The minimum age is 35, right?
Yep.
Oh, okay, yeah, all right. So anyway, I just want to make this recording to basically. So one, if Steven does become president, I get to say, haha, I knew him. But also, just to see what his political opinions are as of right now. So I'm going to ask you a few questions. Some I wrote down, some I might just come up with at the top of my head. You ready?
I was born ready.
All right. So, first off, what political party do you side most of your opinions with?
I have to say that I align further right. I tend to stay pretty central, but I identify as Republican. Not because I take pride. Well, I take pride in being a Republican, but it's more of a disdain for the left and this hateful ideology that they have adopted.
Yeah. I'm gonna try to stay unbiased during this, but I will say it's like there's definitely a distinct difference between liberal and like a leftist, because like the liberals will often debate, like civilly debate with like those of that are leaning right, while like those like left wing, like the media will often just close their like not open for like the like rights views, if that makes sense.
Right. Well, even the Democratic Party has become so corrupt. You have the Clintons, if you believe in the Obamagate conspiracy, you have that. The Clintons literally killed people. I don't think that's up for debate anymore. I'm pretty sure it's common knowledge that the Clintons offed people,
Okay.
and they're not in jail.
So if you were to run in 2040, what would make you stand out from the other right wing candidates running against you?
That's a very good question. Um, I would need to. I don't know if I have a good answer for that because I have no idea who would be running in 2040. It would probably be people of my generation or new up and coming politicians because I don't see Ted Cruz or any of the current senators or representatives running in 2040. That's so far down the line. But I've been involved in politics since now, so 2020. So I would have 20 years of experience under my belt. I've worked for the South Carolina Victory Campaign, South Carolina Republican Victory Campaign. So I have an understanding of how to run a political campaign, the ins and outs of knowing people. I guess my background would probably set me apart the most.
All right. So, but like generally overall, is there like anything, like pretend you were running against like candidates now, what would like what would make you stand out? Like, are there views that are like different from like everyone else in your party that like could enact like positive change or growth?
Well, I believe that most of the people who ran in 2020 and will be running in 2024 tend to cater to their party. Republicans push Republican agendas, Democrats push Democratic agendas. We are in such a political divide right now as a nation, and the one thing that could bridge the gap would be a moderate candidate who could step in and accomplish not what the Republicans, Democrats want, but what a majority of the America wants. And unfortunately, there's no good third party, so I would have to run as either a Democrat or a Republican in order to get the funding and the notoriety and the publicity. But I would definitely be running as a Republican, not just for Republicans, but for the moderates and the majority of America.
All right. And all right, now I'm going to start asking you like less broad, more specific like questions. So, first off, what is your view on like legal abortion? Do you think it should be illegal, or do you think it's justified in America?
I believe that certain circumstances do warrant an abortion up until a certain point. In
What
states
point
like
is
New
that?
York,
What are like point of like conception, first breath, first heartbeat, like what?
well, first breath would be birth, but I haven't done enough research as to the development of a fetus into a newborn child to establish a definite spot where this is where I would want the abortion limit to be, or the abortion to not be able to take place. I haven't done enough research into that, but I do not want there to be, in like New York State, you have abortions up until birth. So you could be in labor and decide to get an abortion, and the baby can be aborted. And at that point, if it was to be born 3 days later, that would be murder. So I believe there's a point. I don't. I feel as though it should be very early. You should hop on it as soon as possible. And I feel like it should be mostly for rape victims and for young people who made the mistake of having a child. Because if you're in your like early 20s and the condom breaks and and you're pregnant, that is the entire rest of your life that is going to be altered by this
Well, why
one
not
mistake.
just give that child to an adoption center?
Because they have to go through 9 months of pregnancy. And during those 9 months, it would be much harder for them to go to school. They would have to start worrying about the hospital bills for the pregnancy. It would be strenuous for the family and for the individual specifically going through the pregnancy up until the point where they would get the baby aborted.
This is the point I was trying to make earlier of like views of your own that are different enough from the like popular Republican like belief, because most Republicans think it's just wrong outright. So it's interesting to hear your a different perspective.
Right. Well, most
All right.
Republican or most evangelical Christians are Republicans, and they generally have the loudest voice when it comes to situations like abortion, and they believe that life starts at conception. Which, of course, you can have your own beliefs. You can believe what you want. If you think that it's murder, you take that up to the government. You can argue it all you want. I would want a tribunal, or not a tribunal, but a group of well-respected biologists and gynecologists and scientists to come together to form a start point of when this baby or when this fetus becomes a baby, and then present that to a federal court where then it could be interpreted and established by Congress, sent to the president, and sent to the Supreme Court.
Okay. Next question. What is your view on the war on drugs? Like, do you think that the consequence of being arrested for selling drugs is too high? Do you think the government should like stay out of it? Like, what is your view overall?
Well, I definitely don't believe that all drugs warrant arrest, like recreational marijuana use. If your state wants to legalize it, that's up to your state. I would not mandate that at a federal level. But when you get into harder drugs like cocaine, meth, heroin, I do not take the libertarian stance of victimless crimes, because it's not a victimless crime if someone on mushrooms goes out and shoots someone and kills them. There's obviously a victim to that crime, and that is the person who died. So I believe the heavier drugs that have a more narcotic effect, or even just a state or a mind altering effect that could be considered dangerous, should be regulated. They should not be in public hands, especially if they're easily accessible to the poor places, where it could start breaking up families, where it could ruin the economy of these poor places like inner cities specifically. Uh, I I just don't
All
believe
right.
that these people should have access to something that can so terribly alter them to the point where they could go and do something that they would never even think of doing while not on drugs.
So, how would you go to prevent the drugs from coming in?
Well, you would have to find out where they're coming from and you would have to take all measures possible to ensure that these drugs are not going into the country, or if they're being made into the country, to crack down on the production of these drugs, because drug dealers should definitely be charged and prosecuted, but the drug dealers can't do their job if there's no drugs to sell. So it would definitely be a crackdown on the drug manufacturers.
All right. Now, so a lot of people believe, which is like it's probably most likely true, is that marijuana and tobacco, like compared, like tobacco and cigarettes is like more dangerous. Yet tobacco is federally legal, while marijuana is only legal in some states. Do you think that tobacco should be illegal, or do you think the economic like devastation from banning it would be too heavy?
I don't think tobacco should be illegal. It doesn't cause a mind-altering effect substantial enough to alter someone's mental state in such a way that they could go and commit a crime that they weren't already planning or thinking about doing. I would not ban it. I would crack down on children or minor use of tobacco, like cigarettes. I don't think any minors are really using cigars, but electronic cigarettes and vapes, because the future generation, they shouldn't have to worry about this nicotine addiction. Because I'm sure if you use Spotify, you see all the advertisements. Get the truth about only 1/4 of teens who start vaping actually end up quitting. So that's 75% of teens who start vaping or start using nicotine
But
use it the rest of their life.
do you really think like advertisements like those really work? Because like for example, the Coca-Cola ad from like the Super Bowl 2013 where it's like don't drink our products, they will make you obese and give you diseases. Like people just watched it, said okay, and then continue to drink their Coke. Like there are plenty and like exponentially rising vape users in America, even with the advertisements.
I don't know the extent of how effective these advertisements are, but if you listen to them and what they are saying is true, then vaping does have terrible side effects that the younger generation shouldn't have to worry about later on down the line, because they made a mistake when they were young and stupid, and then they have to deal with it the rest of their life.
But basically, what I'm asking is like, is there anything else that like the government should do other than just like advertisements? Like maybe possibly raising the price of it to where uh one cannot easily get it.
I wouldn't I wouldn't want to raise prices. I would want to increase the fine or the amount of time spent in prison or the severity of the charges if someone is found providing tobacco to a minor.
Yeah, the main problem isn't the users, it's the person selling it out to the users. If we
Right.
can solve that, then like there won't be as many users to begin with.
This is true. Yes.
All right. So next question. Uh, right now, a big topic for the Democratic Party is healthcare. Do you believe that it should be like public healthcare where everybody gets it, like such as the system Canada uses, or do you think we should have like private healthcare insurances?
Well, I don't know how um, common this is in Canada, but I watched Stephen Crowder's video on healthcare in Canada, and it took him over 8 hours to see a doctor. He was sitting in a waiting room trying to see a medical professional about a question or a concern that he had, and it took him 8 hours to finally see a doctor. I don't even think he saw a doctor. I think he left. But
Hmm.
that's one of the harsher effects of socialized healthcare, the longer waiting times, and it's not free because you're paying for it with taxes. So taxes would go up, and that would affect the poorer people who need the healthcare more substantially than it would the people who don't need it. And even then, the people who could afford a privatized healthcare in the first place would have to be paying more money for somebody who could be an illegal immigrant who could have crossed the border illegally. Um, they don't know where their money is going, which is why I believe that it should be more up to the charity and foundations. Because as long as poverty and as long as what's the term I'm looking for? As long as people are suffering in the world, there will always be charity. And so I would
Yeah.
prefer charitable organizations to be able to take donations and provide uh, good health care to individuals who need it than have the government and bureaucracy handle it.
All right. Do you think there's any major issues with our current healthcare system that we should change?
I haven't heard anything about our current healthcare system besides the push to socialize it. So I don't have enough information to comment on that.
All right. So let's pretend that in 2040, God forbid, but somehow a virus spreads worldwide, similar to the COVID pandemic we are facing now. Pretend that something similar happens in 2040. What would your plan be to solve the issue?
Well, God forbid we never go through another pandemic like this because it is miserable. But
Yes.
I believe that I would do something similar as to what President Trump did, to give the powers to the states. Actually, I would prefer the power to be mandated to the county because you have North Carolina, you have very rural counties, and then you have densely populated. Well, this is true for every state. But you have rural counties, and you have densely populated cities, and the pandemic won't affect these rural counties as much as it will these densely populated cities because it doesn't have as much opportunity to spread from person to person. I think it was North Dakota finished their fiscal year with a $40 million surplus because they didn't shut down. And so if the pandemic isn't affecting that area, then the area should be able to stay open for business, and the economy should be able to continue fluctuating in a proper manner instead of locking everything down, the economy tanking, and then having to build back up from there.
All right. Now, about I think it's like a little less than 100 years ago, the country of Israel uh was created. I mean, it existed before that, but you know what I'm saying.
Right. The modern country of Israel.
Yes. Like obviously there's a modern crisis there now between the Israelites and the Islamic people. How do we solve the war that's going on there? Like, do you believe that people, the Jews, should be allowed to claim that land?
I believe it was circumstance that put them there. You had the United Kingdom owned, or the United Kingdom had colonized that land, and they gave it to the Jewish people after World War II as just their own country. And it's the only Jewish country in the world. You have, I'm pretty sure a majority of countries practice a Christian or denomination as their main religion. And then you have the Middle East and North Africa practicing the Islamic religion. But there's only one country in the world that practices the Jewish religion as its majority religion, and that would be Israel. And they fought against the Palestinians, and they won. They fought against every surrounding Arabic country, and they won. And they claimed their land, and they even gave a good portion of that land back to Egypt as part of a peace deal. And now Egypt and Israel have great relations. If you see what Trump has done with the Middle Eastern countries, with Israel signing those peace deals,
Yes.
we are taking leaps and bounds in securing peace in Israel. We do still have a long way to go, but I do not believe it is the job of the United States to intervene in the goings of Israel. If they ask for help, then we will provide it. But I don't believe the United States should have as much say as it probably does.
Yeah, that's pretty. That kind of goes in line with a question that I have later, where it was like, basically, do you think America should meddle with like foreign affairs? like things that really don't involve us? Do you think we should really still stick our nose in it to quote unquote help solve their problem?
We have enough problems in the United States now to worry about, and without worrying about the problems of everybody else in the world. We became interactive on a world theater after World War II, and with the communist uprisings around the world in Korea and Vietnam. And we created NATO, and we have the United Nations now. But I feel like the United States should take a more isolationist standpoint, intervene only if certain things happen, like violations of human rights are being committed, things that NATO should be doing, even though they're not currently doing. It's not the job of the United States to help everybody else. We created NATO for that purpose, and NATO is not doing its, or not NATO, but the United Nations, and the United Nations is not doing its job. So I have a bone to pick with the UN, but I do not believe it's the job of the United States to help everybody else before it helps itself.
Okay. Is my mic? Yeah, it is. All right. So there is a popular saying from what's his name? I'm probably gonna butcher this, but George Santayana, who basically is those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it, or somewhere along those lines. And so I have a friend who told me that like he lives in the UK and that in their school system they have a like they teach broadly of like American politics and like other countries' politics, just so they have a general scope of like the issues the world is facing, so that if they have a similar problem, they could better face it. Do you think that schools in America should also teach political issues from other countries?
I believe the United States should teach political issues in an unbiased manner, which would be very hard for most teachers, especially at the collegiate level. But I do believe there should be education on foreign affairs and foreign governments, because I have no idea how. I have an idea, but I don't really know how France's government works, or Germany, or the United Kingdom, or any of our allies specifically. I mean, I have a vague idea, but I haven't read any of their constitutions or any of their important documents to their history. So I really don't know anything about the way their governments are set up. You could probably get most of your information about foreign affairs through the news, trying to find unbiased sources, which is very difficult now. But
Yeah, it may. Go ahead.
I would definitely want to see a increase in interest in foreign affairs, even if it's not taught at schools.
Yeah, a major criticism of school system in America is that a lot of it is whitewashed and biased. Do you believe that what is being taught in schools is biased? And how would you go to change it if you believe it is?
Now, just to be sure, can you define whitewash?
Um,
Are,
okay,
are you
so
are you referring to like how it portrays white people as this as better than everybody else, or racist towards everybody else but white people?
uh it's hard to define. It's like, okay, so an example of this would be Christopher Columbus, who like in some school systems they teach of like all the great things he's done and not any of the bad stuff. And like another thing would be with the Native Americans and like the Europeans coming in and like saying like we create peace with Native Americans, Thanksgiving and all that, but then don't go in on like the cruelty that some Europeans did with the Native Americans, stuff like that, where they kind of just uh cherry pick what they talk about to not put like people like white people in a like they cherry pick to put them in a positive view and like no like negative spotlight.
Well, I would definitely want people to be presented all of the facts, good and bad, about every situation, and allow the people to establish their own opinion of the event or person rather than them being told what to think. like, oh, Christopher Columbus was so good, he did all this, or Christopher Columbus was so bad, he did all this. I'd rather them be presented facts and then establish an opinion based off of the facts.
Okay, I just googled the definition, and it says to whitewash is a metaphor meaning to gloss over or cover up vices, crimes, or scandals, or to externate by means of a perfunctory investigation or through biased presentation of data. So, like, basically, like, kind of similar to what I was saying earlier, where it's like making uh making your when you're teaching history, making it biased towards one side, which usually is the Europeans.
Right. Well, Europeans were definitely more advanced than the Native Americans, and that gave them an advantage. They had lived closely by their livestock, which gave them immunity to many diseases that the Native Americans did not have. So the Native Americans were already in a bad position, and the most historians definitely tend to side with the Europeans because most of us are from European heritage. In the or most back then, most of them probably were.
So yes, so this is like definition of biased.
Right.
So
So,
like, good.
no, what were you gonna say?
I honestly don't even remember. Go ahead.
Right. Yeah. No, I was gonna ask you what the original question was. Now that we had what whitewashed was.
Do you believe that it exists in schools, and if so, how would you change it?
Um, I would want, like I said, I would want everyone to be presented all of the facts and not be told what to think, but rather come up with an opinion for themselves.
All right. Um, do you believe that like systematic racism exists in America? Do you believe there is one group or an ethnicity? I cannot say that word. I'm sorry, but ethnicity.
Ethnicity.
Yeah, that. Do you believe that there are groups that are more well off than other groups? And how would we solve for equality?
I do not believe there is systemic racism in the United States. I believe there is racism by individuals, but that is true of every country and every group of people. There will always be racist, sexist, misogynistic, bigoted people in every group of people, no matter where you go.
Yes.
So there is racism. I don't believe there is systemic racism in the United States. And the reason I don't believe that is because you have people of color who have gone from nothing to being celebrities, being famous. You have famous African American musicians and singers and actors. You have the same thing with Asians and Native. I haven't seen too many Native American people in the spotlight recently, but you definitely have people of color who have gone from nothing to being the pinnacle of the American dream, like Morgan Freeman.
Do you believe that like being born in one family compared to being in another family makes it harder? So like someone being born in a poorer family compared to someone being born in a wealthier family, do you think that poorer person has a more difficult time being successful?
The person in the poorer family generally doesn't have access to as many resources as the richer family does. But that should be all the more reason to strive to make more money, to be a better member of society, to achieve the American dream, so that way you can give your children what you didn't have. I feel like that's
Okay, so like this schools the money that goes into it is based off the community around it, right? So
yeah.
there are schools that are definitely less well funded than like wealthier communities. So do you believe that you have to go to a specific school based off of where you live, or do you believe you should be able to choose from which school you want to go to so that everyone has the chance for the same quality education?
So, just to be sure, you're essentially asking me if I support socialized education versus not necessarily privatized, but school choice, right?
Yeah, like,
If
do you
you,
believe there should be like vouchers to where you can like, if you like, say there's a school in York for us, York County, which is not as well as like Clover, just for example, that's probably like not a great one, but just say should people have vouchers to choose to go to a better school with better teachers, better technology, or do you believe that they have to go to the school that's in their community?
I believe that you should be able to choose the school that you want to go to. If you live in a area in which the schools are heavily underfunded, but in the county over, the schools are much better, much more affluent. The graduation rate is higher. I believe that they should be able to go over to the better school, essentially school choice, instead of trying to fix every school that's underfunded, every school that's underperforming, because that would be such a hefty burden on the American citizens tax wise that the competition between schools would probably be the better option for creating a better education system.
Okay. Overall, how would you improve the education system? Because dropout rates over the last 100 years have been increasing. Like, how would you like improve the education system to just like overall? Like, do you think there are like any major problems that need to be improved on?
Well, if you look at a phone from 100 years ago and you look at a phone now, there is
There is no
substantial
phone. There's no
difference.
phone. Well, I mean, there's no cell phone 100 years ago.
Right, there's no cell phone. But if you look at when did Alexander Graham Bell create the phone? I don't know. From the conception of the cell phone to, or the conception of the phone to what we have in our hands, or at least what I have in my hand right now, so much has changed. We've gone from using rotary phones to being able to access anything we want to with the touch of our fingertips. If you look at cars, from when Henry Ford's Model T came out to now, there's such a huge difference. But when you look at schools from 100 years ago to schools now, there is little to no change. And I feel as though it needs to be schools need to adapt with the times to create a more dynamic, a more advanced, and a more appealing learning environment for the students. I don't think it should be graded the same way as it is now. I haven't thought of a better way of doing or a better way of establishing an education system. But what we have now definitely isn't working, and we would need to undergo substantial advancements in the way we educate our children to improve dropout rates, to improve high school education in general, or not just high school, but education in general.
Yeah. Okay. Also, by the way, the first basic phone was 1849.
Right. So over 100 years.
Yeah. All right. So, next question. Uh, with like there are illegal immigration in America. Do you think that we should deport at all people who come in illegally, or do you think we should individually judge each person and how well they contribute to America's economy and other American virtues, and judge them off of that? Or is there like something else that we should view? Like, what is your stance on illegal immigration?
Well, the first thing they did when they entered the country is they broke a law. The very first thing is they break the law of illegally entering the country when they could have waited, taken their time, and done it the right and legal way, which is muddled with bureaucracy, yes, but that is the way we have established for immigrants to enter the country. I feel like we should. I haven't really. You brought up an interesting point. I haven't really thought of trying each individual case of illegal immigrant to see how they contribute to society. But if they did cross the border, I would prefer that the best people to cross the border, even if they cross illegally, be considered to be sent back to Mexico or wherever country they came from and started up or given help to start up the legal immigration process.
A major reason for illegal immigration into America is because the legal route to get here can take a time period of up to like, I think the statistic was up to 50 years, which at that point, like, they're desperate enough to come in illegally. How do you think we can make the legal process more efficient to where people aren't persuaded to come in illegally?
Now, that 50 years, is that for a visa, to become a citizen, to become
To
naturalized?
become a citizen.
Become a citizen? 50 years?
Up to 50 years, yeah, that's just a statistic.
That's insane.
Yeah, it really is. It's a major issue.
Yeah, no, that would definitely be a major concern. That should be a major concern of any administration to fix the bureaucratic nonsense that has been created by the immigration system. I believe that it shouldn't take 50 years. That's insane. I can't get over that it takes 50 years for people to, or it can take up to 50 years for people to uh, come into the United States as what was it?
A citizen.
A citizen, to become a citizen of the United States.
Yeah. All right. Um, if out of all of the presidents the United States has, is there one president that you could relate the most to with your ideas and stances on issues?
Well, I haven't looked at the administrations of many presidents besides our current one, because that
Oh,
is the one that I've been most involved in and most interested in, because I've taken an interest in politics within the past 4 years. But if there was anyone I could relate to a personal level, it would have to be Ronald Reagan. The man was a legend.
all right. Yeah, I would recommend going and researching about the previous president's
Administration.
accomplishments. All
Yes.
right. Um, here's an easy yes or no question. Do you support fracking? Also, explain fracking to people who don't know, because I've had a lot of people who've asked me and like don't understand what it is.
You know, Google defines fracking as the process of injecting liquid at high pressure into subterranean rocks, boreholes, etc., so as to force open existing fissures and extract oil or gas. With hydraulic fracking, according to BBC News, fracking is a process of drilling down. Yeah, we just read that. Water, sand, and chemicals are injected into the rock at high pressures, which allow gas to flow out of them out to the head of the well.
Okay, it's a controversial topic because many believe that it causes natural issues such as earth tremors and uh, chemicals going out into the environment, etc. And so, like overall, do you think the benefits of fracking is worth it, or do you think we should ban it?
I definitely don't think we should ban it, but I feel as though we should very, very slowly begin to move away from these resources that we've become dependent on, like such as coal and natural gas, because the future of humanity, like 100,000 years down the line, if we're still dependent on coal and oil, and we use all of the resources that we have at our disposal, we're kind of screwed. We will always have solar energy, and it would be really. I'm really into space, and I think it'd be really cool if we could get like a Dyson sphere to harness the energy of the sun. I don't know if do you know what a Dyson sphere is, Junior?
No, I do not.
It reflects the light. It's basically a huge cluster of satellites that goes around the sun, and it reflects energy back to a specific point in which all the energy is collected and then redistributed throughout the solar system by shooting the energy from planet to planet, which is it's a really cool concept. Of course, the mega structure of that magnitude, you need to completely deconstruct Mercury. Like, you just get rid of the planet, break it down into materials, and then use those materials to make the satellites. But that's so far down the line that we really can't think of a project of that magnitude. I would not ban fracking, but I would certainly want to see humanity start developing these newer forms of harnessing energy that are renewable, like solar, like a Dyson sphere. That'd just be really cool.
Do you believe that alternate like you getting energy are any of those alternate choices probable and in like upcoming generations, or like how long do you think it's going to take before we do eventually get off of depending on natural gases and fuel and all that?
It would take. I'm no scientist, but I can infer that it would take a very, very long time for us to get rid of our dependency on fossil fuels in a manner in which we still have enough energy to power everything, and we still have all of the jobs that we have now with fossil fuel and coal mining and distilling and distribution.
Do you think the government should supply more money to companies who are trying to have like make the process more efficient for getting alternate energy sources? Do you think do you think the U.S. government should give more money to those who are trying to put like solar panels or windmill or whatever into the country so that we don't have to rely on fossil fuels as much?
I wouldn't want the government giving money to these companies. I would prefer them to give like tax alleviations, so they don't have to pay as much taxes, so they can divert more of that money towards innovation for the sustainable future of the human race. But that's so far down the line, and yeah, that's just so far away from where we are now that we should be worrying about it, but we don't need to worry about it as much as the Green New Deal would have us.
Well, that's like a major issue is and controversial topic is that these alternatives are so far down the line that we like need to come up with a like plan to implement these ideas like now soon because the environment is just getting worse. Do you have any ideas for like making these alternatives come sooner than later?
Well, tax alleviations and encouraging through advertisement and through media the increased education in the STEM fields would probably do the most work for providing a workforce capable of the innovation and providing the funds for the innovation. But people have said that the planet's going to destroy in the next or be destroyed in the next 5 years. People have said by there's no right number. People have said in 5 years. People have said in 100 years. No scientists can agree as to when the Earth will end because of fossil fuels and um, global warming
All
or
right.
climate change.
Do you think we should raise, lower, keep the same, or any other ideas for like drinking age, smoking age, like the minimum age you have to be to get a job? Like, what are your stances on like those different topics?
Well, for the drinking age, I've heard studies say that the brain finishes developing at 23, and that's when we should allow people to start drinking.
I'm pretty sure it's 25, but continue.
25. Yeah, but I feel like 21 is a reasonable age for people to start drinking. Of course, I'm not a scientist. I don't know all the facts about these things, but drinking age, I believe it should stay where it is. I think the age to start smoking should increase to 21 as well, because that is also a very important decision that someone makes in their life. And I don't feel like an 18-year-old who is fresh out of high school is of the mental capacity or has the proper thought process to say, I want to start smoking and I'm going to get addicted to cigarettes and it's going to be a terrible journey for me to quit, but I'm going to do it anyway because that's future me and I don't have to worry about the future because I'm living in the now.
Well, in some states they have made it 21, but if research shows that the brain fully develops at 25, then shouldn't we also make the age for substances that negatively harm your body at age like 20 restricted until age 25 as well?
Well, the way that my father told me about this, and I agree with him. And you can enlist in the military at 18. You can die for your country as an 18-year-old in the United States. So, to force someone who can give up their life for their country to wait till 25 to start consuming alcohol and tobacco seems to be a little bit extreme, in my opinion, at least.
Do you believe that 18 is too young to enlist in the military?
My dad just got home.
Oh, it's fine.
Can you give me a minute?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Dad.
Hey guys, so if you're listening to this podcast and you're interested in politics and political debates, this Discord has a political subserver where anyone can join and like comment on their political stances. As long I don't support bullying, but you can have any view and not be like punished for it. Like people will probably criticize you if your idea is outlandish or disagrees with the norm, but you will not be like banned or censored as long as you're not bullying. So if you are interested in more political discussions or uh, potential podcasts in the future, be sure to join this Discord. I will leave a link in whatever description you are listening onto, whether it's YouTube, Instagram, or whatever social media platform you are listening to this to. Also, thanks for listening. I'm sure Steven will be back soon, and
I'm back
I've only
now.
got a few. Oh, you're back?
Yes.
Okay. Um. So we were talking about the drinking and smoking age and etc. The question I asked you is, do you believe that 18 is too young of an age to enlist in the military?
That is a great question that I haven't given much thought to because it's always just been a constant in my life. Like, oh, at 18, I'm going off to either go to a service academy or I'm going to join the Air Force and I'm going to serve my country. I haven't really given much thought as to if it should be 18 as much as, oh, when I turn 18, I'm doing it.
All right. And do you believe, because during the Vietnam War, the America has had drafts for because they were short on soldiers, so they had drafts for just people to be selected to enlist in the military. Do you think that should be allowed?
If they're able bodied citizens who are willing to serve and can serve, I feel like that they should. I don't think the government should tell you that you have to serve, but it should definitely be encouraged. And I would like to say about the Vietnam War that it was a terrible event that happened. Whether you believe that the war should never have happened, or if you believe that we should have finished the war instead of withdrawing, it was American lives were lost, and it was a terrible thing that happened. I personally would have preferred to see the war finished and have those lives that were lost mean something. But that's just my 2 cents about the Vietnam War.
All right. Another major issue with veterans is that I don't know if it's a majority, but like I know it's like a pretty high percentage or higher than it should be. Of There's a lot of veterans who come home and like they can't get a job because of PTSD or a like medical issue or maybe even a physical issue, like you've lost a leg. And so a lot of veterans become homeless. Do you think there's anything we can do to like economically boost veterans who are now suffering after they come home?
I'm glad you brought this up. I believe this is one of the worst problems America has. These people have served their country. They have suffered from mental or physical afflictions, and the government provides no help to them to get a job, no help for them for mental or physical care. And I definitely feel like the Veterans Association, or the VA, is it the Veterans Association? And that the Department of Veteran Affairs should definitely step in and do more to help these soldiers who have come back from war, who have given up part of their life for their country. They should be provided physical and mental aid to become integrated parts of society once again.
All right. And similarly, for not just veterans, but for those who are homeless and don't have a job in general, do you believe that the government should financially support them, such as food stamps, even if they like do not have a job? I know it's a controversial topic. Many people believe that in order to get food stamps, you must have a job, in which I don't know if they've actually passed that yet or not. I haven't been looking into it recently. But do you believe that we should support uh, jobless people as we currently do? Do you think we should support them more, support them less? Also, there are like general people who just like drug addicts, former drug addicts, people with autism or other disabilities. Like overall, how do you think we should go with financially supporting those?
Well, I feel like the government should step in to help people off their feet. I feel like they should provide, in the beginning, a little bit of help for them to secure a job, to find an apartment or someplace to live with family or friends if they need to, and provides food stamps at first. But once they start building the income, the government assistance should end. And I feel like people make poor choices or they aren't careful with their money to stay on food stamps because it's so much easier to be. Now, I don't know what percentage of people are like this, but I feel like it's easier for them to be lazy and to not go out and keep a job and learn about economics and how to establish a portfolio and how to build their bank account and their assets. And if they're just going to take advantage of the government without trying to help themselves, I don't feel like the government should help them anymore.
All right. All right. Next question. Yes or no question. Do you condemn same-sex marriage? Do you think the government should be involved? Just yes or no.
I am not opposed to same-sex marriage if the church that is performing the ceremony is okay with it. I don't feel like the church should be forced to do it by government.
That's actually the second part of the question I wrote down is, should the government force churches and synagogues and other religious services to be forced to like hold marriage ceremonies for same-sex marriage? Or do you think that those private, I mean, do you call churches and like religious services businesses? Like, I don't know if that's the correct term, but
You
like,
can
do you
call them
think they,
places of worship.
yeah, places of worship, do you think they should be forced to hold the marriage ceremonies for people who do same-sex marriage?
I believe that if the church is willing to, the church should be able to. I don't think the government should force people to alter their religious beliefs to cater to a group of people. I believe that's a violation of your First Amendment, your freedom of religion. But if the church or place of worship denomination is completely fine with same-sex marriage, and they want to hold this service, or they don't want to, but they can hold the service, they don't have anything against it, then go ahead. I believe they should definitely be able to do that.
All right. Um, it is it's unfortunate to see many people who will generalize and stereotype all people who are have conservative views as racist, sexist bigots, when really it's just mainly like the alt right who are like those like awful people. So like just overall, just state that you can like condemn white supremacy and like I don't know. It's just, when like for example Donald Trump was asked this, people said President Trump had a hard time doing it during that. I can't remember which debate it was. So overall, just do you condemn white supremacy?
I, being of sound and stable mind and body, do totally condemn white supremacy or any form of discrimination against a group based off of unchangeable or fixed factors or traits in their lives.
All right. Okay. Do you think we should? What do you think we should do with the minimum wage as it stands now? I think it's $7.25 on a federal level, and you can raise the minimum wage on a state level depending on what state you're in. I know like California is $15, and I think like a state like Oklahoma is still like the very minimum. So, do you think we should raise the minimum wage? The popular number that the Democratic Party is coming with is $15 an hour. Do you think that's too high? Do you think there should be like a uh I can't think of the word do you think there should be a compromise for like the amount that we should raise? What do you think the minimum wage should be raised to, or do you think it should stay the same? The minimum wage has not changed since Obama's administration, and I believe that it was changed in 2009.
I do not believe the minimum wage should be changed. And many Democrats say that $15 an hour should be the minimum wage. But I believe Bernie Sanders advocated for that. But if you looked at Bernie Sanders' financial plan for the government, the taxes that he would establish would do nothing to the minimum wage. If you had a $15 minimum wage with taxes that Bernie Sanders was going to implement, you'd be right back down to 25s?
Yes,
You'd be right back down to 725 plus the taxes that you have now.
due to inflation.
So
Yes.
there
So
would be real.
do you believe now in America that getting $7.25 as your minimum wage is enough to support yourself as like just one person? Do you think it's enough to be able to support a family? Like do you think the minimum wage is enough money to suffice to be good enough for someone's life economically?
I definitely do not believe that minimum wage should be the wage that a family is built on or that someone spends the rest of their life living on. I believe it's good for entry level positions, but minimum wage should really only apply to entry level positions. You should be able to work up to more advanced positions that provide a more stable income. And I don't think anybody should be having a family or thinking about having a family on a minimum wage income, especially because one child will double your expenditures. So if you're getting by just barely on a minimum wage and you have a child, you will go into debt real quick if you
Yeah.
have a child on minimum wage.
All right. A major issue with politics today is that one side, whether it be the left or the right, is unwilling to hear the perspective of the opposition. Are you willing to hear the democratic beliefs, and if they can convince you or persuade you enough to where like one specific subject is wrong? Because during these questions, I've asked a few questions that you and your answer has been like rather democratic, especially your answer with the war on drugs. So like are you willing to hear the democratic views if you run?
I would be willing to listen to both sides of the argument to create a compromise that would work, that would most likely work, or work better than the two by themselves, or pick the option that would work best and be in the best interest of the American people.
All right. Uh, okay. This question I wrote down is kind of similar to one I've asked earlier, so I'm just gonna skip it. Okay, for taxes with the economy, do you think that the taxes that are being applied are too high, or too low? Do you think we should change how much taxes should be paid, for the average American citizen?
Well, the economy is booming. Well, the economy was booming. I think it's definitely going back up, right?
Pretend that COVID never happened. Let's just look at
Right.
the statistics before COVID.
Okay. Well, assuming COVID never happened, the economy was booming. Unemployment was at the lowest it's ever been for minorities. If it's working and it's working well, I don't see why we should change it, especially if it's on an upward trend.
Okay, now putting COVID back into the picture, do you think we should lower the wage temporarily until the COVID rates go down and society can go back to normal?
Do you mean taxes? Because you said wage.
Yes. Oh, my bad. Yeah, taxes.
Yes. I I think the best thing to do is to reopen the economy as soon as possible, instead of trying to find some half-handed compromise or ham-handed. I don't remember what the expression is. I was trying to say a no word, but
Half-handed. I think
yes,
it's half-handed.
half-handed. Instead of trying to find some half-handed compromise, I'd rather open the economy as soon as possible, as soon as it is safe for the American people.
Well, like we're opening the economy for like for example restaurants, opening them back up like makes the risk of COVID rates going up in that particular area much higher.
Right.
So what statistic do you think like should be reached before the economy should open back up? Like the COVID rates in certain areas are rising substantially, yet like the economy is opening back up. I think they're on phase 3 now. And so do you think we're going too fast, or
I feel like
do
this
you
goes
think
back.
it's a good thing? Good.
I feel like this goes back to giving it to the county, because it's currently at the state level, and states
Mm-hmm.
like New York, especially New York City, that were hit really hard. Well, upstate was fine or relatively fine, and now that we're reopening, if a county has very low cases of COVID, then they should be able to remain open or open up ahead of everybody else. And if the cases increase, then restrictions can be brought back in place that are appropriate instead of taking the entire state down with a couple of cities.
All right. Um, Going back to the topic of freedom of religion, do you believe that religious well just like religions overall, do you think like Christianity, Judaism, Islamic, Hindu, and like various other ones should be taught in schools, or do you think that those topics should not be covered in the schools for uh bias reasons?
I believe that the more knowledge a person has about the world and the other cultures, the better off they are. I would want to see education about different religions be taught in school in as unbiased of a manner as possible. I understand that there's definitely going to be some sort of bias no matter what, but I would prefer to see people have at least a little bit of experience or understanding with another religion so they can relate to other people who are of that religion, and the community can grow closer through a mutual understanding.
All right. Um, well, that's the end of my list of questions. Is there anything that you would like to say to persuade people to if pretend that you're running now? Is there anything you would say for why you would be the best pick?
Um, Because I'm awesome. That is why. No, I don't have any impactful final statements besides vote for me for president 2040.
Okay, well, people who are listening to this in 2040 and hearing this, uh, ignore the part where he says vote for me just because I'm awesome. Probably not the best uh stance.
That was in good faith and as a joke.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
I
vote for me
understand
just
that.
because I'm awesome. I want to make that very clear for the media when they look back on this. Don't vote for me because I'm awesome. Vote for me because I'm the best candidate, which I will be. Obviously, I mean, nobody could compete.
All right, good luck in 2040. I better become a part of the House of Representatives once you become president.
If you run for office, I would definitely come visit you in the Capitol building.
Yo, let's go. All right. Thank you for joining me. I'm all out of questions. Hopefully people who are listening to this in 20 years do not hate your guts now because of your views as a 16-year-old.
Yes, all of these views are subject to change with new information and new life experiences.
All right. Uh, Thank you for watching. Like I said, I will put the thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I will put the uh link for the Discord where we did this political discussion in the description of whatever you're listening to this on. That way, you can join. Like I said, there is a politics subserver for political debate, and as long as you are not being a bully, you are allowed to speak your mind without any consequence. And as of right now, there's about, I would say, 50 members of this Discord, and I would say it's not exactly a 50-50 split, but it is pretty even with Republican and Democratic uh, people. I would probably say it's a little bit leaning to the right, but not by a lot to where the entire political discussion is just uh, ideologies from the right. There's definitely a good balance. I would probably say it's like a 60-40 split. But anyway, thank you for listening, and I will see you on the Discord.
Yes,
You
go
have
make
anything
sure.
left to say, Steven?
Yes, everybody, go make sure you subscribe. I don't
You
know the
can't
term,
you
but yes,
can't
subscribe.
subscribe to a Discord. You can join and become part of the community. That's all there really is to it.
Yes, well, I am a dinosaur, so join the community. And thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, it was fun. We'll see if we can do any more political discussions. It was a lot of fun.
Yes.